Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're taking a trip to Japan.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're diving into Ikigai, this really cool Japanese concept that people link to having a long and happy life.
Ikigai. Interesting. I've heard the word.
Yeah, so we're going to check out this book called Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And I have to say, so far it's really got me thinking. It's like a mix of cultural insights and practical tips, and even a bit of philosophy too, which is always fun.
What I found striking is how practical Ikigai seems to be. Like, it's not just this abstract idea, but something people actually live by, especially in Okinawa.
Okinawa, right. The place with all those centenarians.
Exactly.
And you know what I thought was really cool? The way the book starts, like with this chance encounter in a Tokyo bar.
Oh, tell me about it.
So the authors are talking about Western ideas like logotherapy, finding meaning in life. And then suddenly, bam, they hit upon this idea of Ikigai.
And they realize that for the Japanese, in Okinawa particularly, Ikigai isn't something you go searching for in therapy. It's just, well, it's part of life.
Like breathing air.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's back up a sec. What exactly is Ikigai?
In simple terms, it's finding that thing you love doing, that thing that gets you up in the morning. It gives you a reason to be.
So it's not just about finding a job you don't hate. It's more about finding something that really, lights that fire within you.
Absolutely your passion.
But this Okinawa connection, that's where things get really fascinating. The book calls it a blue zone, and apparently they've got some special secrets to living a long life.
One that really stood out to me was harahachibu. It's this practice where they only eat until they're 80% full.
80%, that's interesting.
Right. It's such a simple idea, but it makes you think about how mindful they are about food and how much we actually consume.
It almost makes you wonder if overeating is like a Western problem.
It's a thought, isn't it? I mean, think about how much we emphasize supersizing and cleaning our plates.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, hara-hachibu is all about moderation. And it seems like the Okinawans apply that to a lot of aspects of their lives.
Interesting.
This whole idea that maybe not overdoing things is a key to longevity is pretty compelling, don't you think?
For sure. But it's not all about food in the book.
Yeah.
They also talk about having an active mind to keep a youthful body.
Right. And there's this one quote by a neuroscientist named Shlomo Brezmitz that really got me thinking.
What do you say?
Well, he said that our brains crave challenges, like puzzles, to keep them sharp.
Okay, I can see that.
He said routines, although comfortable, can make our minds kind of, well, stagnant, like a muscle you don't use.
So just like we exercise to stay in shape physically, we need to challenge our minds to stay mentally fit.
Exactly. And it makes sense. When your mind is sharp and engaged, you're probably more likely to make good decisions, about your lifestyle, and that in turn helps you live longer.
It's like this positive cycle.
Precisely.
So keeping our minds active and engaged is just as important as hitting the gym if you want to live a long and healthy life.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But speaking of active minds, the book dives into this idea of flow, a concept by this psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Flow.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced flow yourself?
I think I have. I mean, haven't we all?
Probably. But can you remind me, what exactly does flow mean?
So flow is being completely absorbed in something you're doing. You totally lose track of time. You're just in the zone, fully energized, and in sync with the task at hand.
Like when I get completely lost in a challenging coding project.
That's it. And the book suggests that those moments of flow, they aren't just fleeting feelings. They might be clues to finding your ikigai.
So if something puts me in a state of flow pretty consistently, it could be hinting at something more, like my purpose.
It's a possibility.
That's pretty neat. But how can I find more of these flow-inducing activities? Does the book offer any advice?
Oh, absolutely. There are some great strategies in there to help you get into that flow state more often. One of the main ones is to pick tasks that challenge you, but not to the point where you get frustrated.
Okay, so finding that sweet spot where it's tough enough to keep me engaged, but not so hard that I just give up.
Exactly. Like a good video game, it's got to keep you on your toes, but not make you rage quit.
Makes sense. And I guess distractions would be a killer for flow, right?
You got it. In fact, the book mentions a study that showed how bad multitasking is for focus and getting things done.
Hey, really?
Yeah, they found that people who multitask a lot actually struggled with even simple tasks when there were distractions around.
Wow, that's pretty eye-opening. So ditch the phone and focus on one thing at a time.
Exactly. Give your full attention to the task at hand and kick those distractions to the curb.
So find those challenging but doable tasks, set clear goals, and get rid of distractions. That's the key to flow. and maybe even to finding my Ikigai.
That's the idea. Create the perfect environment for focus and engagement so you can really immerse yourself in the activity and experience that flow state. Now, let's shift gears a bit and look at how this whole flow idea shows up in Japanese culture itself. The book introduces us to takumi.
Takumi. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Takumi are these amazing master artisans in Japan. They basically dedicate their whole lives to perfecting a specific craft.
Wow, that's dedication.
It is. They spend years, sometimes even decades, just honing their skills and getting to this incredible level of precision and artistry. It's really mind-blowing.
So they're like the ultimate example of flow in action.
You could say that. They've found their Ikigai in their craft, and they pour everything they have into it.
It's inspiring. And what's interesting is that this whole idea of striving for excellence through flow, it's not limited to just these traditional crafts in Japan.
Right.
It seems like it's woven into their culture.
It is. You see it in their engineering, how they solve problems, even their sense of aesthetics.
Yeah, I've always loved the simplicity of Japanese design, whether it's something like a teacup or a super fast bullet train.
Yeah.
There's this, like, meticulous attention to detail.
It's true.
This sense of harmony between form and function.
It's definitely intentional. It reflects this deep belief in the power of flow, you know, and the importance of pursuing mastery in whatever you do. Remember that documentary, what was it called? Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
Oh, yeah, Jiro, the sushi master.
Exactly.
That's a great example. He's got the 3 Michelin star restaurant.
And he's still so passionate about
Nana Kurobi Yaoki. What's that mean?
it. Translates to fall 7 times, rise 8.
Oh, I like that.
Right. It really captures that spirit of resilience, that determination to keep going no matter what life throws your way.
It's powerful. And this resilience, it seems to stem from their philosophical outlook. The book draws some interesting parallels between Buddhism and Stoicism.
Interesting, right.
Yeah.
Well, both philosophies kind of recognize that suffering is part of life, you know, but they both emphasize controlling your reaction to it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Accepting what you can't change and focusing on what you can.
Is that similar to negative visualization? The book talks about that.
It is. It's a stoic practice where you mentally prepare for possible setbacks. You imagine worst-case scenarios, and that actually helps you build emotional resilience.
So it's not about being pessimistic.
Yeah, not at all.
It's more about being prepared.
Exactly. You acknowledge that challenges are going to come, and you make a plan to deal with them.
Okay, I can see the value in that. And speaking of acceptance, the book also explores this really beautiful Japanese concept called wabi-sabi. Are you familiar with that one?
Wabi-sabi, yes.
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure I can explain it. Something about imperfection.
You got it. It's all about finding beauty in the things that are imperfect, impermanent, you know, the things that are incomplete, like those little cracks in a teacup.
Oh, okay.
Or how things naturally age and change over time.
It's about accepting the natural cycle of life. With all its imperfections and its changes, it's kind of like finding beauty in, like, the wrinkles on someone's face.
It is, those marks of time and experience.
I love that. So embracing imperfection, like wabi-sabi, encourages resilience. And that, in turn, helps us go after our Ikigai without being afraid of those setbacks. We talked about the Okinawan diet before, but the book also has some general diet advice for people living in Western cultures.
Oh, right.
So beyond that hara hachibu thing, you know, and eating lots of fish and veggies, what else should we be eating for a long life?
They recommend a variety of foods, lots of fruits, vegetables, oily fish, and those good whole grains.
Classic healthy eating advice.
Yep.
What about olive oil and red wine? Aren't those supposed to be good for you? In moderation, of course.
They mention those too. And remember to stay hydrated, of course. Drinking enough water is so important.
Okay, so a balanced diet, regular exercise, enough sleep, strong social connections, and a positive outlook. It's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
But is there anything else we can learn from the Okinawans? You mentioned their strong community bonds earlier.
Oh, yes. Their sense of community is incredible. They have these groups called moai, which are basically lifelong friendships that give people this deep sense of belonging and purpose.
So it's more than just casual friends.
It's much deeper than that.
These moai are like intertwined in each other's lives, providing support, helping each other out, and sharing responsibility.
Exactly.
Like a built-in support system.
Yes, a safety net of love and care.
And this sense of community, it goes beyond personal relationships, right?
Right. In Okinawa, they really value volunteer work. Everyone pitches in with their skills and talents to make their community better.
The book describes it as a giving back culture.
It is.
People find joy in being useful and contributing to something larger than themselves.
It's a beautiful thing.
I can see how that would make you feel more purposeful and happier.
Absolutely.
I love the idea of using your talents to help others. And they're so active socially.
It's amazing.
They had these community centers where they can dance, sing, play games, and just celebrate life together.
They really do.
There's this great story in the book about a birthday party for 3 residents.
Oh, I remember that.
One was turning 99, another 94, and the youngest was 89.
And they were all dancing and singing like they were in their 20s.
It's amazing. It really shows you that you can stay young at heart no matter what your age is, and that being social is a big part of a good life.
It is.
What about their spiritual beliefs? Do those play a role in their long lives?
The book talks about their belief in mabui, which is like a person's essence or life force.
Mabui. Yeah.
And it's interesting, they believe that mabui can be passed on through touch, like when you pass down a family heirloom.
So it's like you're passing down a part of yourself, a part of your history?
Yeah, it creates this sense of connection between generations.
Beautiful.
Like a legacy that continues through objects and stories.
And they have such a strong connection to nature too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's evident in how they garden, how they appreciate the beauty of the natural world. Reminds me of their slow food philosophy.
Yes.
They really savor meals made with fresh, local ingredients. It's mindful eating at its finest, appreciating the connection between food, nature, and well-being.
It's all connected.
It really is. As we wrap up this exploration of the Okinawan lifestyle, I'm curious to know more about this concept of continuous learning that the book keeps bringing up.
Well, it emphasizes how important it is to keep our minds active and engaged throughout our lives, just like we do with our bodies.
Yeah, that makes sense. We put so much effort into staying physically healthy, but sometimes, we forget about our mental fitness.
Exactly. And the book is full of these amazing stories about artists, scientists, and thinkers who never stopped learning and growing, even in their later years.
So they kept creating and contributing well into old age.
It shows that you don't have to lose your curiosity or ability to learn just because you get older.
That's really encouraging to hear. Because, there's that idea out there that our minds just, inevitably decline as we age. But that's not necessarily true.
Not at all. There's actually a beautiful quote from T.H. White's The Once and Future King that I think captures this idea perfectly.
Oh, I love that book. What's the quote?
It says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, "You may grow old and your body may fail you, but there's one thing that the mind can never exhaust, never be tortured by, and never regret: learning."
Wow, that's powerful. It really highlights that learning is a lifelong journey, something that can bring joy and purpose at any age.
Exactly. Now, let's circle back to that core concept of Ikigai. The book suggests that while there's no magic formula, there are definitely ways to discover your own personal Ikigai.
Right. You mentioned earlier that it's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and skills align with what the world needs. But how do we actually go about finding that intersection?
Well, they recommend spending some time reflecting on your passions, the things you're really good at, and those activities that bring you into that flow state we were talking about.
Okay. And maybe even think back to our childhoods.
Yes. What did you love to do as a kid? What activities would you lose yourself in for hours?
When I was a kid, I used to spend hours building things with Legos.
Legos, there you go.
I would get so absorbed in building these elaborate creations. I was totally in my own world.
I think those early passions can give us some real insights into our natural talents and interests. They can show us what truly brings us joy and makes us feel fulfilled.
That's really interesting. So those little things we loved as kids could actually be clues to our Ikigai. What other advice does the book give?
They talk about paying attention to what they call microflow moments in our daily lives.
Microflow. What's that?
It's about noticing those small but enjoyable activities that kind of brighten up otherwise ordinary tasks.
Okay, so it's like those little things that make you feel good, even if they seem pretty insignificant on the surface.
Exactly. Like organizing your desk or cooking a nice meal. These tiny moments can tell us a lot about ourselves.
Because they show us what we actually enjoy doing.
Right. And by noticing what brings us that sense of ease and pleasure, we can try to incorporate more of those things into our lives.
I like that. It's about making small but meaningful changes that can add up to greater happiness and fulfillment.
Exactly. And remember, don't be afraid to experiment. Try new things. Step outside of your comfort zone.
Because you never know, you might stumble upon something you're really passionate about that could become your Ikigai.
You got it. And keep in mind that it's a journey, not a destination.
I love that. It takes the pressure off having to find that one perfect thing.
It does. And who knows, you might even discover multiple ikigai throughout your life as you change and grow. So, what do you think? What have we learned from exploring this idea of ikigai?
Well, I think the concept of Ikigai offers us a really powerful way to think about living a longer, happier, and more fulfilling life. It's about finding purpose, becoming more resilient, embracing that flow state, and nurturing the connections that bring meaning and joy into our days.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's truly about adding life to our years, not just adding years to our lives. So, dear listener, we leave you with this question. What activity in your life brings you closest to that state of flow? Could it be a clue to your own personal ikigai? We encourage you to dive deeper into this book and see where your journey of self-discovery takes you. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep seeking out those sparks of joy that make life worth living.